Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Glad to be back. A couple of weeks off, no submissions, but now we have a packed house. I think we got 8 submissions to work through today. So the goal for today is I'm going to try and get through everybody. Obviously, it can't be as detailed as when we have 3 or 4 of them, but I'm glad to see we're getting some submissions. So I'm going to try and choose one, maybe 2 things to look at for your swing if you're on here today. And I have a message for... Who's the last one? I have a message from Marco. So Marco, whenever I try to load up your video, the whole Swing Catalyst shuts down. So I don't know if it's a format issue, but I saved your one till the very end. We're going to give it a try. If Swing Catalyst shuts down, we're going to have to get you to send that one more time to me, so then I can do it next week. But we'll, fingers crossed, hopefully it doesn't shut down. Let's see who's in the house right now. Just Steven. Who will win tomorrow, Rory or JJ Spawn? Do you know that JJ Spawn has type 1 diabetes? I did not know that. Rory's Rory. You know, he's gonna keep it up as best as he can. Obviously, it comes down to who putts the best. So my money is on who's putting the best this week. And I assume that's you, Marco. So yeah, let's just keep our fingers crossed. Let's hope that Swing Catalyst enjoys your video today. And James, what's up, James? I'm not sure. Do I have a submission from you today, James? If not, welcome to the channel. If you want me to ever take a look at your swing, just let me know, and you can send it to info@liongolfacademy.com. And if you do send it, make sure it's face on down the line. Steven sends the best ones. So here's like a down the line that we're looking for. It's right down the line, right down the foot line. Face on is right straight up, just so you see that. So if anybody's watching, they want to send submissions, please. Face on really helps. Down the line really helps. 3/4 views like this, we can do our best with it, but we are limited to some angles that we can look at, but anything's better than nothing. So hopefully that works. James, I sent it last week. So yes, then I assume, let me see, do I have you here? If you sent it last week, then I got it. So I assume you're going to be, yes, I do have you. You're going to be second up, James. So sit tight. All right, the first one. This is Brando, 57, 5'6", 145. Usually scores a 90-95. I try to turn through the ball, but usually start the downswing with upper body and lose all angles. So I end up steepening shoulders, lose hip depth, bobbing my head, and making all kinds of compensations. Just trying to simplify things and become more consistent. All right, so let's take a look at the swing. And usually when we all have compensations. There's nobody with a perfect golf swing. So it's just learning your compensations and trying to adapt either accordingly with the setup changes. This doesn't have many notes on range of motion. So I'm just going to assume the range of motion is normal. And if you do send some videos, make sure you just include anything with range of motion for me. So it makes it easier for me to diagnose. But yeah, we do see a lot of separation between the power source and the hands at the top of the swing. That requires a lot of manipulation down at impact, lots of spine angle. So let's take a look at the straight down the line. And this video, for some reason, I can't zoom in. So some videos I can zoom in, some videos I cannot. Glad to be here. Perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. And perfect, James. Yep, sit tight. You'll be here. All right, so let's do a basic lines for us to look at. And should we break it? Should we not do Barney Purple? Should we do our, what's his name again? Gumby Green. All right. But we got to do Barney. We got to do Barney. So let's do Barney as the spine angle. And let's just take a look at this. Now, I know this is not directly behind the foot line. So we are kind of at that probably 5 o'clock angle. So we can see the feet are pointing slightly right, which will bring the target line. So this is more like behind the ball. If you can, any future submissions, do it behind your feet. It makes it a little bit easier. We can see, however, that this is a very heel-based setup. So even if you take a look at where the sensors of the arches are, a lot of that body's sitting behind. Now, it might not be as heel-based when we get that camera angle behind the foot line, but it's still going to be heel-based. Now, with heel-based setups, it can be kind of an issue to rotate the lower body. And you can see your first takeaway. Let's see if we can zoom in decently. We can zoom in to about here. And it did. Let me drag it. Perfect. Okay, so we'll zoom in a lot then. So let's take a look at this first motion with the hips as we take that club back. You see there's not a lot of initial motion with the hips. And I think that's a lot to do with the setup. You can see a lot of the weighting is just stuck on your heels. As opposed to if you want to get more in the center or your toes, it will help you turn because you'll be less prone to just sit on your heels. And when you do lack that first motion with the lower body, the hands really take over. So you can see the hands immediately get off that lower plane line and they're working slightly up. I would say my slightly, but I don't have my Donald Trump picture. So you can see how the hands go up, and now all of a sudden it's a very, manipulation with the hands and arms. We see a lot of rolling, that right elbow's tucking in, and that's to try and get the club back there because there's a lack of initial turn with the lower body. So this becomes a very hand-dominated golf swing. You get to that secondary plane line decent, you can see that you're fighting that weighting. So the weighting is standing up. Now this might try and get you more balanced because you see so much forward with the upper body. As you take that club back, you start to stand up, and that might help you with some balancing. So ideally, you might want to stand a little bit taller, get your weight more towards your center, typically your toes, maybe a little bit to get that different feeling. Because once you get to here, you can start to see they're going to do that back brace line. We start to see right there, we start to lose posture, and we just try and manipulate something, try and get some turn. So you do turn, but you're just kind of crashing into yourself right here, and then you're standing up to at least thrust whatever you can. So it's almost like you go from no turn with the lower body to try and create something to feel like you're turning through the golf ball. That initial turn with the lower body will help everything move accordingly, will help you keep your hands in front of your chest a little bit easier. And remember, when you keep your hands in front of your chest, things work in unison. Things are delivered more efficiently. We talked about lag in a video last week. And as long as your body can move and as long as your hands are somewhat connected to the center of you, you don't necessarily need a lot of lag because now your hands are striking the golf ball with the power source of the body. But if your body's not moving accordingly, let's say you lack turn on the way back, your arms have to make up for that. And when they do make up for that, momentum takes over. They start getting, to the top position a little bit too much angles. And now all of a sudden when you compress those angles, what do you have to do? You have to flip and get out the way. So you can see past impact right there. Look at that left elbow. So the left elbow now has to brace up. Who's coming to dinner, right? Left elbow braces up because when you throw that angle too soon, the club gets longer. To create room, your hand has to break. Your left hand has to break to provide the room. So there's just a lot of this going on instead of that initial turn. So if you do have flexibility issues on your way back, I'm assuming you don't because you didn't mention it. You just got to get that first move. The entire lower body has to turn to move your hands. So think about your hip is turning, and in turn, that'll move your hands. Try this. Try turn your lower body and keep your hands where they are. It'll feel so awkward. It won't happen. So just turn your hips and everything will move with the hips. And then you don't need to go so far back. So you might have to control your momentum, but it all starts with the setup. So your setup should, if you want to keep that angle the same here, ideally you want to be feet a little bit further back. So here we go with my stick figure drawings. So feet are back here, and then they'll be more like this. Hopefully that makes more sense. So you're just straightening up your legs by shifting your feet more under your hips. So if you want an easier way to think about that, is center of your hips is right there. You basically want the center of your hips to be underneath the center of your arches. So right about the arches. So that should help you. That should give you enough room to get that first motion turn with the lower body. And then from there, just work on eliminating all this extra room that you have to require to flash down and impact. You lose your angles, you stand up. So hopefully that helps you. All right. So if it seems like I'm moving fast, everybody, it's because we got 8 submissions. So I want to make sure we get everybody in there. All right. I assume this is James. I hope so. Hope this is James. James, have we done something together before? Because this swing looks pretty familiar, like I've seen it before. All right, James. Name is James, currently shooting low to mid 80s. I would like to shoot in the mid 70s or lower, but my inconsistency with contact and left misses are hurting my score. My contact misses with irons are mixed with thin and behind the ball. I also tend to hit it very high with all my clubs. Launch is 21-23 with a 7. Tend to miss left pull or pull draw. With few misses to the right, high fade. I think my upper body is coming up during the downswing, causing me to flip at the ball, but not sure what I'm doing. Okay. Let's take a look. Down the line. Yeah, it was you. Yeah, I remember seeing this. This is a while ago, right? This was probably like a year ago. Because when I looked, I was like, man, I know I've seen this swing before. Okay, yeah, so I see that you have made some changes based on what we talked about whenever that was with your setup. So that's looking good. Okay, yeah, let's take a look right at impact and see what's going on. Yeah, I see what you mean. That flipping motion will definitely get some high shots going on there because your dynamic loft at impact is you're like scooping at it and you're going to add loft. Plus, I don't know, how steep are you? Let's see. Let's see this. How do you say steep in past tense? Stepth. let's see. Let's see your stepth. Yeah, I see it. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't really call that steep. I think you're just your arms are trying to play catch up, and you get them so trapped behind your body that they have to fire a little bit too soon. Right about here. Um, yeah, there's definitely some disconnection issues. Sequencing looks okay, but you do have to outrace your body right with the upper body right at impact. Yeah. All right, so let's go to this here. See, this one I can't move down. Okay, so sorry, you're stuck at this angle. So if we take a look at where your shoulders are tilted, we take a look at that spine angle is kind of rocking underneath you here. With this right at impact, you would like to be a little bit closer to where your spine angle is, and that's dependent on your shoulder. Now, obviously, some people can exaggerate that shoulder tilt or not exaggerate enough. So this is ballpark. So just keep that in mind. But even if you have your hands meeting where that spine angle is, you can see there's a little shaft lean there. Now that might be too much shaft lean. So you have to look at maybe this lower body is moving over too much. And that could also be causing you to get this, dropping it in here and your hands have to kind of reactivate somehow or make up for that. So ideally you want to be your hands a little bit more forward, but you can see they do get disconnected and they get trapped. So you'll really see it from this side. So if we zoom in here one more time, and you'll see the trap right on your transition. So you do a much better job, from what I remember, of keeping everything relative to the plane. And you can see your setup is pretty good. There's your spine angle line. So it's pretty close to where it needs to be. So as you take that club back, you see you do a decent job of keeping things relative to that lower plane line. But since you're so close to the golf ball, what that does is it changes your upper plane line. So many people don't look at upper plane lines. And upper plane lines, they're not meant to be hit, but they're meant to show you where you should be going with your upper plane line based on your starting position. Upper plane line is just basically where the shoulder joint is parallel to the lower plane line. And that's like a perfect match. Now, I'm not saying that you have to meet either one, but you're going to take a look at your causes and effects. So as you take that club back, you do a pretty good job of getting, somewhat on that lower plane line. It is hard because you don't have much room to turn because your hands will run into the body. So that's okay. But you can see your shaft, your club face angle is relatively close to your spine angle, which is good. And then from here, you should be going higher to get to that secondary plane line. But you kind of reroute yourself, and now you're pretty flat according to your upper plane line. And this is all setup. So there's two ways you can solve this. You can change your setup to allow that to occur more naturally. So you have to stand a little bit further away to lower your plane lines, or you just work on that halfway checkpoint to bring your hands higher. That's going to feel like it's much steeper on your way down, but at least your looping will be high to low, which I much prefer a high to low loop because at least you can drop it into the slot. Low to high, it's very hard to drop it into the slot because it runs out of room. So right here, you're trying to drop it down, but because you were flat to begin with, now all of a sudden you don't have much room to work with. So look at the right arm. It's so compressed to the body. There's no way for you to keep that angle. So you have to get your hand to throw over the top to create some sort of room to at least get the club going out to the golf ball. And you can see right there. So now it's technically steep compared to where you started from the top of the swing, but it's also technically flat to where it should be based on your setup. So I hope that makes sense to you. But that's kind of the issue I see, and that will definitely cause contact issues because that's a very timing oriented motion, and it all comes down to how much room you're providing yourself at impact. And if you provide yourself the same amount of room, then uh, it's okay. You can develop it. But if the room is a little bit off, or if your timing's a little bit off, the last video I did, VJ Singh, Ben Hogan, the reason they had to hit balls from sun up to sundown is because they had a very timing oriented swing because of the way they worked their lag. They compressed it into it. So you don't want a timing oriented swing, although there is timing involved in golf. You don't want your whole golf swing to be solely reliant on timing. You want more body, more space, more, so there's less effort for your hands and arms to do. I got to catch up here. Yes, I believe I sent this in before. Swing them before, blah, 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 right. Close during the setup. Yes, I wouldn't say you're close to the setup. If it feels comfortable, that's great. But you have to just understand that when you do have a closer setup, your secondary plane line will be defaulted taller, if that makes sense, because they need to work together. Because if this secondary plane line's here, you've got to match that club accordingly. It's a little bit harder to match the club from that angle than these angles, because at least the club can slot down straighter without having to, re-straighten that club shaft. So I don't know. It's totally up to you. If you want to stand a little bit further back to allow yourself a flatter takeaway, that's okay. But I think the better motion is if this is a comfortable setup, from this halfway point. So right when the club meets the hands right here, that nice little circle, it's really good. Instead of accentuating the shoulder tilt to stay down, because that gives you, a very straight arm from this position, you're going to be kind of trapped. You can see the club's working lower, and then when you get to the top of the swing, it's just stuck pretty flat. I would instead, at this halfway point, think to yourself, I need to get this club to go more vertical so my left arm can be somewhat near this. And it doesn't have to hit it exactly, but even if it gets to there, that's so much better. Even if it gets to here for now, just to fool yourself, at least you'll have the room to do that little drop in the slot that you do. But you can see, because your arms are so low, you try to drop it in the slot, but now all of a sudden, look at your right arm. It's disconnected so much from the center, and that club is trapped. So there's only one move, which is to kind of throw it out there and get, who would come to dinner. What's up, Doc? How you doing? Yes, we're back. We got enough submissions. So, James, I hope that helped you. Let me know if you need some more clarification, but you can watch this again. Let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, just either work the setup a little bit more spacing and get that secondary plane line to come more steeper naturally, so then it doesn't feel trapped. All right. Thanks, James. Next up, let's see who is next up. All right. Let me get this bearings right. You get away from this for 3 weeks, you forget how to do anything. All right, this is Jesus. I've been playing golf for 10 years since I was 40. I've taken lessons, but I did not improve too much. I'm currently working in speed, doing gym. Let me play this while I do this. Speed, doing gym workouts, 3 times speed sessions, but I'm still struggling. Sometimes I feel I will never go to 110 with his driver. He's at 103 now. But when I see videos from Dana Dahlquist saying to get to 115 is easy, I do not understand it. Why is it difficult to gain miles per hour? I guess he's trying to say. Natural ball flight is a fade. Normal miss is pushed to the right mostly. I have had neck pain due to herniated discs, but now it's getting better since I'm going to the gym. Good. I used to play soccer, swimming pool, basketball, tennis. Right now it's just golf and gym. Okay. Thanks for your time. All right. So anybody who says that getting to 115 is easy, don't listen to that at all. It's not easy. The tour average in the 80s was like 104, 105. So think about that. He's expecting you to have more club head speed than PGA Tour average in 40 years ago. Good luck, man. It's reserved for a special few people. I'd say maybe 15% of golfers can get that high. Now, again, club speed means absolutely nothing. It's ball speed. You got to look at your ball speed, because you can swing like a wild banshee and have 150 mile an hour club head speed, but hit it off the toe, your smash factor is 1.2. That ball is going, 140 miles an hour. Or you can swing with, more consistently, a little bit slower, have 100-mile club speed, hit it right in the center, 1.55 smash factor, your ball speed is 155. So don't get caught up in club mile an hour. That's a trap. Get caught up in ball speed. Look at your ball speed. So hopefully that helps you. Let me see. I'll make some adjustments and submit the swing again. You got it. Just make sure it's not a year. Try and do it like every 2-3 weeks to keep you on some sort of plan here. All right, so let's just take a look at this. So I do see some separation here. You can see the arms are kind of flailing around. Let's take a look at the face on. All right, so I can see there's good athleticism here. Even with the herniated discs, and I see the effort there. There are some power leaks just by looking at it. There seems to be a little bit of sequencing leak. Maybe the hands and arms are catching up at the very end. So I'm not sure what the effort level on this club, on the swing is. Yeah, the arms just seem very, very tight. They don't really seem like they're releasing naturally. Almost feel like borderline muscling through this. All right, let's look at the down the line first. Let's take a look at the plane work and see what's happening. So mellow yellow, he's got to make his appearance somehow too, right? Mellow yellow, and then we also check. We're going to split the difference, arch of the heels. Okay, pretty decent. So let's take a look at that motion. So we go low. Okay, good shoulder tilting, separation, and then a little shaft humping. Yeah, arms are getting trapped. Okay, so there's a thing to be said about swinging. If you look at the long drivers have such a unique motion because they try and blend the best of both worlds. They have a massive amount of shoulder turn, shoulders, they get their whole body to turn. It's almost as much as they can turn. And they also get their arms to disconnect as much as they can. It's like they're mixing John Daly and Tiger together to just get this massive swing going. And then they just unleash at it. They have to maintain their posture. They obviously use 2 or 3 degree drivers because their swing is so far up. They're teed up very high. It's connected to their tilt, all that stuff. So there could be some misconception. You don't have to swing far to hit it far. You have to swing connected. And if it feels shorter by staying connected, that's okay because it's all about connection. So we see as we take that club back, we see the club, the club head gets below the plane. Now this is, some say it's okay, but I would say if it gets below the plane and his shoulders were increasing tilting while he's rotating, it would be all right. But since they're actually staying level to his setup, to his spine angle, it could be some issues with his hip tilt. You can see that left knee kind of buckling in. So as the hip tilts down, he could be loading too much on his left side. And we see he tries to compensate that from the face-on view by shifting his body right, and then he tilts down. So there could be some loss of power from the ground forces that he's not using correctly. As we get to the top of the swing, right there should be the top of his swing. And we take a look at the angle of the club face. Club face is slightly closed, so there's a little bit of limitation on the rotation. It could be a strong grip, but that's a concern too. And then from this point on, we see all that extra motion. And look what's moving, just the hands and arms. So just think about this for how many frames? 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. So now we got 4 frames that we have to reconnect down in a third of the time. So this is that disconnection issue. Now, it would be okay if you started from the top here and then reconnected down first and then turned. But now that's going to mess with your kinematic sequence because your sequencing should be ground up, inside out, and you start with the lower body. So let's say you've disconnected 4 frames and you start with the lower body. Guess what's still disconnected 4 frames, possibly 5 frames because of the X factor stretch you get from ground up. Now all of a sudden he's so disconnected that he tries to move his hands down. So if we take a look at this point here, we're going to draw his patented, who, triangle check. So let's do that triangle check here. So you would see if you are connected, you won't see much deviation. Your hands will kind of fall down that triangle pretty naturally. And we see right there, it tries to, right? But all of a sudden, watch what happens. That hand just goes completely out of that triangle and it's moving out this way. So it's very steep. It's going to go from steep and all of a sudden he has to get his hands low. So do you think that's going to happen in 0.05 seconds? Just down. It's very hard to do. So we have a very steep motion, Plus, we're starting to lose a little bit of posture, and now it's just game of timing. So, do the hands make up for it? We can see we have high hands, which results in low club face. So there's a compensation too. And then as we strike it, we see those hands. Look at the hand motion there. There's his 4 or 5 frames, but it's too late because his rotation's already gone through, and all that power that he created, whatever power he could from the ground force and rotation, is lost in those 3 or 4 frames because now they're just playing catch up. They should be meeting up together right at impact. So this might be a case of just over swinging and just falling in love with speed. So I think if you just want to get the feel for what it should be like, is you want to definitely work on this hip tilt. You can see a hip tilt slides out. It's right there. You can see the shadow of your right hip shorts. There goes the sun. So that motion, all the weighting is being pushed out back to here, and now all of a sudden it's probably trapped on your right heel, and it's very hard to push with weight on your right heel. How do you jump up? If you were to jump as high as you can, where do you push off of? You don't push off your heels. You push off your toes. So it's very hard to generate ground force with your weighting stuck on your heels. Now you have to manufacture something. So there's just a lot of manufacturing going on here instead of using things in sequence and correct. So it's just very disconnected. I don't mean to sound like bad or anything, but I want you to spend your time correctly. So get a piece of paper, and this is the drill. I probably provide this drill, it seems like, every week now. You get a piece of paper, hold the piece of paper in front of your chest. Okay, I'm gonna demonstrate it back here. It's like I do this. I should make a clip and just make it easy for me to tape the clip. So you want to stand back here, right? You want to get in your posture. Hold this piece of paper right here, and just go ahead and turn and tilt. Make sure that piece of paper is right in front of you. Pull your hands in front. As long as you can do that with the piece of paper not rolling, because if you roll that piece of paper, club face is laid off. So you have to keep that piece of paper in front of you, and then feel like your hands just lift up accordingly. They shouldn't lift up so much that you start to tip. Now, if you tip, that's an issue. So just let them lift up until you stop tipping. But what you're doing is you're ensuring that your hands are connected to your turn and your tilt. And based on your body positions, based on your body ability, you'll feel the stretch and you'll feel yourself lock up. And that's where you just stop. And it might feel like your swing is 3/4. But you take a look at Tiger when he won the Tiger 2000 Slam, 4 majors in a row. Go look at his swing and go tell me what it looked like. It looked like he swung half a backswing, but he was hitting lasers out there because he was compressing and keeping things together. He didn't have to do any, compensations down at impact, and his swing was on autopilot. So amateurs want to keep a swing where it's controlled more with the body, because body and club face together creates a little easier power. And you might not hit it, you might not bomb it as far, but your consistent power is what you're after. You're looking at your dispersions as an amateur. It's not necessarily how far right and left you miss it, but also how far short and long do you miss it. So if you can't control your distance, what's the point of having 8 irons when you don't even know how far they should go? So you want to feel like it's more compressed. You want to feel like everything's moving together with the body. And if you can't get a lot of turn, then guess what you need to try and do? You need to do more stretches. And it sounds like you're going to the gym already. So I would highly recommend working in on just getting some more connection drills. And if you need more ideas on connection drills, just go ahead and email me. You have my email, Jesus, and just let me know and I can help you out. So I hope that makes more sense to you of why I feel like there's a lot of power leaks in your golf swing. So let me know. And if anybody has any questions while I ramble on, I'll get off my soapbox in time to help you out. All right, next up. All right, let's see who this is. This is Matthew. Okay, I've enjoyed watching your swing analysis videos and appreciate your clear visual descriptions. Thank you for that. And let's see what he says. I was watching the Wilco near novice analysis, and in part where you said to allow those hands to speed up to catch up to those shoulders because they have to. If they don't, they're going to be late and the ball is going to the right and more right. And then he'll develop a flip and try to counteract that. Well, welcome to my golf swing. This is the issue I've been trying and failing to deal with for 15 plus years. Let me see. Okay, so basically, hopefully you're on. Is this Matthew? Yeah, Matthew, hopefully you're on. If you're not and you have questions on this after you watch it, just let me know in the comments. But if you're on, let me know too. So I can ask you questions live and see what's going on here. All right, we got a little shuffle going on there. Yeah, same thing. I see what you're talking about. So when you look at this swing here, so you take a look at the amount of tilting again. So this is the right before we hit the golf ball. We can take a look at your tilting. A lot of tilt. You know, the spine angle would like to go here, but you can see it's kind of stuck. So we might have too much tilt for our spine angle. And so your hands, you see where your hands are connected to your spine angle there. So, you know, with this much tilt, your hands should be about there before you strike the golf ball. But now all of a sudden, you've got way too much uh, shaft lean. And in order to get that shaft lean, you need more tilt. So this will be a good impact position if you can maintain that shaft lean. But then you'd have to be falling back further like this to carry that shaft lean to make sure that we're still striking it a little bit more up as we strike it. So the more forward press you carry into the golf ball, the more it requires you to hang back with that tilt. So at least your hands will be not ahead of the ball so much so you can still carry that angle and swing up. Hopefully that makes sense. So when you look at that, now you take a look at your hands at impact and past impact. So now they're connected to right there. They're connected to your shoulder tilt, right? So there's your shoulder tilt, which hasn't changed much. And now they're connected. But look at where impact was, and you're way past impact. So this just shows that you are disconnecting and a little bit too much tilt. So we'd have to look at what's going on with a little bit too much tilt, specifically off the deck. I mean, you don't need much tilt off the deck because to try and strike down when you're tilting and your hands at this point want to go up, it's going to be very hard. And you have to get a little bit of your hand manipulation there. So you can see the right arm extends out to make sure you're swinging down. So you are robbing yourself of distance and consistency by doing that. But let's take a look at down the line to see what we have. Okay, so this is a driver. So we'll keep noting that. It's on a tee. And let's draw some basic plane lines in Ivan red. Okay, setup's not too bad there. Let's take a look. Oh, the camera shifted on us. Shifty camera work. We'll make it work. All right, some initial rolling of the club face, stalling out in the turn. So we see the turn, the lower body stops turning right when the hands take over right there. So see the lower body's just kind of stuck there. So there's your disconnection. So your hands are already crossed over to the right side. Yeah, and a little bit too much tilting going on here. So your knee tilt is going to affect your hip tilt. So you have too much tilting going down here, which will then rob you of, you know, trying to straighten out those knees at impact or even turning through. Yeah, look at the amount of rotation you have here. So there's lack of rotation on the way back, but then there's excess rotation on the way through. So we've got, you know, we have the motions in there. You do a pretty good job of staying in your posture, which is great. You see there's plenty of motion, there's plenty of room for your hands to drop in. And right here, we can see those hands kind of playing catch up from there to there. So I think it's just keeping the ratio different. So we have to think about, you know, your total amount of turn in your golf swing. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that's 25 degrees. Impact, let's just say it's 90 degrees. So you have 115 degrees to work with. So instead of being 25 and then whatever, I said 90 degrees, you might want to be 45 and 70 degrees. So you just need to work on using that ratio a little bit better to keep you in sync. So remember, it's all about that first initial takeaway to keep you in sync. So if we look at where your club face is relative to your lower plane line, yeah, it gets higher. So this is a result of shoulders getting up. So remember, when you start rolling your hands, you start your left shoulder also starts to come up, right? When you come up, now all of a sudden your hands can take over the golf swing pretty easily. But you do a decent job of not allowing them to take over as much because you limit the lower body hip turn. So because you limit the lower body hip turn, you're only at mercy depending on how much you can separate your shoulders and your hips. So let's say you were getting at 45 degrees, plus you've rolled over, you released all the tension in your left side, you'd probably take that club too far back and then you'd have a little bit more of an issue. So I think there's just some, not necessarily sequencing issues, but position to accommodate the sequencing. So a little bit more initial lower body turn to help you so you don't stall out right there. and then left shoulder slightly more down as you take that club back. And that's slightly more down. You want to make sure that that left shoulder is maintaining its relationship with your spine angle. So right here, you can see your relationship here. So you have that relationship. So your left shoulder's peeping up because you're rolling the club face open. So everything's kind of like this. So again, paper drill. Back it up 10 minutes. I'm going to refer that paper drill again. Left shoulder down. Make sure it's perpendicular to your spine. Get that stretch. And then once you feel that stretch, let your arms go up. Just your arms go up naturally, but you have to engage the lower body. If the lower body is engaged, it'll help that left shoulder stay down. It'll help you stay on that lower plane line a little bit better. And then you'll probably feel the stretch more. It'll lock you into your turn, but it's limited to your hip turn. So I know that's kind of short, but I hope that helps you. And if you're on, let me know, or we can go over stuff again. But if not, hopefully that helps you. And if you need further information, send me an email. You got my email. But enjoy your return to golf. We have a lot of returners. You know, we got the snow's melting out there. All right. This is Steven. You're on here, right, Steven? Yeah, Steven's here. All right, so this is Steven's, somebody's helping with, and she sent in, I think this is the third time, so we're just going to do a little quick checkup for her to see how things are going. So we had some issues with her alignment first, then we had some issues with her ball position, then we had some issues with forward pressing. We had a lot of issues with her left arm not being able to stay, you know, relatively straight at impact. So we're just going to go over this and make sure that we're keeping her kind of in check. But things are looking a little bit better, Stephen. They're definitely looking more like fluid. And I'm noticing these golf balls are still moving right. So we'll take a look at why they're moving right. And I am okay. All right, this should be fairly easy to diagnose here. So let's take a look at what happens to that club face. First of all, we'll do the lower plane line, upper plane line. So we can see that the setup changes. Now, I know we talked about moving that ball, you know, a little bit in a position to help her. So we can see that if we move that ball position up towards the left side, there's two ways to get there. One way is to turn to get there, and the other way is to tilt to get there. You would like to tilt to get there, because if you turn your upper body to get there, you can see what's happening here. So we have right forearm facing left, and this is slightly open. So this will change your path depending on that ball position. But then you have to realize, are you manipulating for that path? Let's see here. She had a bent left arm address, causing heel shots with the iron. We straightened the left arm, and she had the ball more in the center of the club. Perfect. Okay, so at least we're getting center strikes. So let's just look at why it's curving to the right, because that's going to be a fairly easy fix. So for anybody who has alignment issues with their upper body, you know, just realize why you have alignment issues. If that ball's too far forward, it could be a ball position change. But if it's too far forward based on your tilting address, just be careful how you get to that tilt. Excuse me, that golf ball. So if you go ahead and grab your hands in the middle and you can tilt, that'll bring your hands out in front, or you can turn and they'll bring your hands out in front. When you turn, you have this sort of issue. So Stephen, a good way to do this is get her in that posture, how she is now, with her openness, and then take an alignment rod and kind of shove it in between her forearms. So you want to kind of pretend it goes here and then sticks out there, okay? And then you want to pull that alignment rod so it'll kind of close her up a little bit. So her right elbow might feel like it's a little bit more flexed to get that to be square. So that's number one. Setup does look better. We can see that it's almost there, Stephen. You can see she's still, you know, sitting back on her heels a little bit. So remember, feet just pull them back a little bit to allow the center of the arches to support the hip joint. Because if they don't, that's going to be some issues with ground loss. And we take a look. Yeah, and this could also be, so let's say you are open. You're going to over-exaggerate that first motion to close you up. Now, when you do this, look at that right leg. The right leg's completely stuck. So when you straighten out the right leg, you put yourself at a disadvantage to kind of push into the left side. So we might see more of a slide than a push. We don't see a lot of foot motion. And what we'll do is let's do it from the face on so it makes more sense. All right, let's see. So right here. So we're going to draw the knee tilt. So knee tilt, and then the hip tilt works just the same way. So the hip tilt's going to match that knee tilt. So when you have too much knee tilt, it's going to push your hips differently, and you won't be able to store up weight correctly and drive it correctly. So she's going to be so busy trying to, untilt her hips instead of focusing on driving. Now, when you turn, there will be some hip tilt and knee tilt. It's normal. But when you have too much, because one's straightening, one's bending down, that might cause you, remember, this is all connected. So if you were to stay upright and be able to stay in balance, your upper body would be your level point. So you can see how much her upper body had to move over to compensate for this. Now, when she moves over, it might not look like she's moving over to us, but according to her hips and her knees, that's the red line is where her spine should be. So she is still trying to move over, which will give her the illusion of weight transfer. Now, when you have that illusion of weight transfer and you're not really transferring your weight, you're just staying upright. So she's just staying where she is, right? So this creates complex issues with how the foot works and how the feeling of weight transfer gets involved. Because as she strikes it down into it, see that first move is which she's trying to untilt her hips immediately, but you see it doesn't come from weight distribution because the right leg is staying straight. It's just coming from, I need to untilt my hips somehow. So it's more of a manufactured untilting, and that robs her of the sequencing, that robs her of weight distribution. And then she is doing a much better job though of finishing. Look at that impact. So we can see that she is able to at least keep things connected right at impact. Let's back up. I don't know why I did that. So look at that right there. So she's got a great ability to keep that club connected. But think about, she's doing that while, dealing with that lower body issues and probably dealing with that alignment issue. Now, if you take a look at the club face, if we see where that club face is right before she strikes the golf ball. So let's go right here. So let's go to the top and see. So top is kind of gets lost there. So it's a little bit open. So there's the club face. There's her left forearm, a little bit open, not too bad. And then right there, I think it opens up more, but let's see the important part. Okay, now it's pretty straight to the left forearm. Right here, it's open to her spine angle. So she now has to close this somehow to strike the golf ball. So we probably see, if that's her range of motion, she has to time that, right, to make sure that club is square. So depends, if she has the ability to stay more connected with her turn, the club face won't be as open. It might be here. So there's less manipulation down at impact. But as she strikes it, you can see that club face is getting pretty close to the heel again and open. And then comes the closing of it. So here it is closing down, not as much. So she is late with the close. So that's probably why she's getting that starting fairly straight, maybe a block every now and then, maybe a pull every now and then, depends. But we do see a big motion. You can see that ball right there takes off, and then it gets to this area, and then it starts just curving, and we can see it's in there. So it definitely is big curving right about here. So yeah, we still see that curve right. But overall, I think it's good changes. I think you just got to work on the alignment with the upper body, making sure that's all squared up, and then the hip tilt, because that's going to rob her feels, and then also how to untilt her hips instead of weight distribution. So let me know if that helps you. If you need any more information, just let me know in the comments. But we're moving right along. Are we going to be able to do this? Yeah, we got a few minutes left. We can squeeze some in here. All right, next up. Oh man, this is a severe worm camera. The worm cameras are nice. Let's see what we can see here. It's a little bit choppy. Yep, you can already see some disconnection. Hands do a good job though. Oh, pretty good there. All right, let's see what we can see from down the line. So setup, we can already see some issues at setup to create some spacing. So there's lower plane, upper plane, and spine angle, and arches of the heel straight up. So you can see how much of the weighting is stuck on those heels. Not a lot of room to work with here. Let's see how that gets taken care of. Okay, not too bad. But remember, the same thing is happening here. To create the room, we're getting a lot of this tilting going on. So the right knee is getting straight and the left knee buckles in to create some spacing. So because we have to feel like we keep it on that lower plane line, our momentum gets us trapped a little bit lower than where we should be. But let's see how we come out of it. It goes those knees kind of straighten out to get that tilt again. Drops it in the slot pretty decently. Club is falling below, which could create some issues when your hands are too much above. And we lose a lot of spine angle here. And we come on up, and now we're on that we're above that secondary plane line. So he goes from below the secondary plane line over here to above. So we see, compression, not a lot of room standing up, and he has to finish higher than when he entered. So this is a pretty self-explanatory one too. You definitely need a little bit more, my opinion is you'll need a little bit more spacing, so you don't have to get your hips to tilt so much to create some spacing. When you tilt so much, now all of a sudden your weighting's off, and you're going to be fighting your weighting by untilting your hips, and they created some room. So I'm not saying that this is the answer to everything, but it's a big contributing factor is how you set up to the golf ball, because setup is everything. There's people that get away with murder out there. You take a look at anybody in the PGA Tour that has a unorthodox swing, they're the exception to the rule. Now, you shouldn't say that, hey, because they can do it, I can do it. Well, they're the exception to the rule, just like anything. They have the ability to time and to hit the golf ball from that position over and over again. Their body has been built to do that. It has required playing golf since they were 4 years old, all the way up to, some of these guys are in their 30s now. 30 years of just playing competitively in that environment with the pressure. They're able to do it. Doesn't mean that you should conform to that knowledge and that ideology. So, this hands are in and weighting is off. So not a lot of room to work with. So we want to look at, for those of you at home, just go in and draw where your arches of your heels are up to the sky. And then you can basically see, where the weighting is and how much room do you have. And it's all dependent on how far that golf ball is. So if all you were to do here is just change that golf ball position to be a little bit more out here, now that's going to lower your plane, but it's also going to get your arms to hang down a little bit more naturally. And that's going to lower your top plane line. So then you don't have to feel like you're manipulating stuff. So when we get to as that takeaway, you don't have to manipulate this first part of the takeaway, because now that club is below the plane. 99% of PGA Tour players are above the plane, and we're not saying we need to copy them, but we have to understand that that's the easier path to be on. So don't make things harder on yourself. And by adjusting this, your hands don't have to compensate, and then they can get to that secondary plane line, which they do pretty naturally here, but they got there unnaturally. So momentum's not on their side. Momentum is taking his hips down and his arms back around. So footwork is off now. Now he's just have to work with whatever he's loaded, and it's probably loaded incorrectly. So the unloading will be incorrect. And that's when we get this compensation. So right here, look at the amount of hand manipulation. He has to stand up to create room. Hands have to flip to time that, and he finishes much higher as a result because of that compression into the golf ball. So look at your setup, and then look at why things are occurring in your setup. And if you need lines, we don't live and die by these lines. These lines are just to help with cause and effect. So I do hope that helps you. And let me check his notes here. If he had notes, helps. Is this Axel? Yeah, this is Axel. Hit the range a couple times. Peak count, squeeze the towel drill to keep the club more in line with my hands. Okay, so I'm assuming that's this one where you wrap it around and squeeze it. That's another thing. When you start to do drills, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing that drill? Is it make sense to your swing and the way you set up and your current compensations? Because the way you set up, you need your compensations to hit the golf ball. And if you're trying to cure those compensations to be textbook, your swing won't work because it needs those compensations. So I don't know why you would try to fix compensations as opposed to looking at why those compensations are there in the first place. Fix that, and then you can start to work on better positioning based on a new setup. So you want to set up to promote what you're going after. So if you want the towel drill, you need spacing, you need your weighting corrected so you can keep your arms more closer to your body so you can stay more connected. But right now you can't. So you're kind of going against yourself there. Stephen, fantastic. I will talk. Okay, perfect. Yeah, have her watch the video too, Stephen. That might help her as well. All right, next up. This is Jonathan. So he sent me his old videos too, which is great. So I don't know if you guys remember Jonathan. He was on here, I can't remember, a couple months ago, I believe. School teacher, I believe. And I'm glad to see he's utilizing that classroom correctly with with the hitting bay inside the classroom. He's got a boat. Man, this guy's living the life. All right, so definitely an improvement on the setup. We don't see as much exaggerated forward press, so that's great. Let's see what he said. Chose to send you swings I did without any other swings or warm-ups. Perfect. So that's like raw swings. Good. Using 9-iron in both the old and new. We have one par 3 course opened up a few weeks ago in Wisconsin, and I jumped at the chance to go out and kick off 2025. Ended up with 4 pars, including middle of the green on my first shot, and also avoided double bogey. Good job. So plus 5 and 9 holes, felt pretty good about it considering it was my first round. Ultimately, like to shoot +1 to +3 on par 3s, and right now he's a 9.5 handicap. Would like to get down to a 7. I hope I'm reading the right person. All right, let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look at what's happening with that impact, because I'm very curious to see if there's any changes that impact based on that adjustment. So we're going to have to queue these up for impact. So hopefully this won't take too long. Let's get it right at impact there. And let's get it right at impact somewhere here. Right, we're going to pretend there's a ball there. All right, so that's some of the issues with not hitting the balls, because you don't actually hit a ball. So we're going to have to see what's going on here. All right, impact. Okay. So we see the clubs back here. We're assuming the ball would be here if there was a ball. Obviously, you can't hit a ball in the classroom, or else we won't be a teacher very long. We do see, better positions. We don't see as much manipulation specifically here. Look at that. So we see at least the hands are not keeping up with the center of the chest a little bit better. Here, the hands are keeping up with the center, but that club has already reached parallel. Here, it's just reaching the same position. So this is great. The club's in the same position before and after, but we're seeing more turn. We're seeing more connection. The hands are higher, so they're moving with the body more. So yes, this is definitely a great improvement from this face-on view. Let's just, out of curiosity, let's see how everything else is moving. Yeah, so I assume, we see less spacing between this club shaft and the head. So I assume you're on a flatter plane. So we'll have to take a look at that from you down the line. But yeah, you can still see a little bit more rotation too. So good job with the rotation. And look at the lower body. It's definitely rotating more. Upper body's rotating more, which should help you stay on that lower plane line longer. We'll take a look at that. Good job. Yeah, there's definitely some good things happening here. Let's take a look at the down the line. And a lot of manipulation in these videos here. On the fly. All right, now we got to sync it. Appreciate your patience while we sync this together. There's new impact. Did it change it? There's new impact, and we're going to pretend old impact is right there. All right. Okay, let's take a look. It's almost there. It's not as steep. It's still steep, but it's not as steep. You can see the club is working its way on that left forearm here. It's still stuck in between slightly. It doesn't get to the top left forearm, so it's definitely getting shallower, except this first part of the takeaway I think you should still focus on as well. And a lot of this has to do with that initial turn. So let's see here. There's your lower plane line, upper plane line, lower plane line, upper plane line. Let's take a look at that first takeaway. Yeah, see, so the hands are working their way up and out. So see here, you're above your secondary plane line. Here, you're right on that secondary plane line. So as you take that club back, I know we're working on more turn. I still think you need a little bit more turn with that lower body to help you secure this hand to go closer here. When you turn this way, everything moves according. Everything will move this way. So your hands will be on that lower plane line a little bit better. And then you can take those hands up, and they should be at that secondary plane line, or for you, if you want to shoot for that lower, and then you won't be as steep. It's better. Definitely better, but you want it to be a little bit more shallower so you don't rely on things. But here, you can see there's definitely more turn at impact, more tilt. Look at that tilting. So big kudos. Look here. Right shoulder is tilting down, right shoulder is tilting down, but so much more tilt and turn. And that's amazing that just from that forward press, you're able to change a lot of these impact positions without really addressing them. So I think what you need to do is stay with that setup that you have, those setup changes we worked on whenever you were with us last. And then initial turn with the hips. That initial turn will get your hands to stay lower a little bit easier, and then you'll get that lower plane line, and that'll get you depth, that'll get you width, and then you'll get that stretch on the left side. Once you feel that stretch, that gives you permission to just raise your hands. You don't have to keep turning, just raise your hands, and when you do, you'll feel it stretch even more. And that is telling you your body's ability to stay in that position. And then from there, we just unload naturally, ground up, inside out, and just turn. Let the hands release where they need to, because they don't have to manipulate, because they're set up better. So give that a try for, I know season's getting a little bit better for you. Give that a try for however long you need. I'd say 3 to 4 weeks at the most, and then send me another one, because you don't want to leave it too much longer to give more habits to develop. But overall, this looks a lot more aggressive in terms of staying connected. Your tilting's getting better. Your turn at impact's getting better. We just need to get that turn on the takeaway to help you stay on that lower plane line longer, so you don't get so steep at the top. Because if you're too above and you turn because you've lacked turn, the more you turn, the deeper your hands go. And the deeper you are, the easier it is to come from the inside. If you don't turn enough and then you turn from the top, you're just throwing everything out and over you. So hopefully that does help. Is it possible? Let me see here. Is it possible my string right hand is also strong. Jonathan, is this you, Jonathan? Yes. Is it possible my strong right hand is also encouraging me to put the hand push away from me? No, not really. Strong right hands, the placement of the hand position really just affects, the placement of the club face during the swing. The hands going up and away from you is just a lack of lower body turn, because if you don't turn the lower body enough for the amateur, then you only have one place to go, which is out and away. So try turning your shoulders but not turning your hips. You can only do it to certain points. Let's say you get 40 degrees of separation. If you have 0 degrees of hip turn, you're only going to get to 40 degrees of shoulder turn. But if you have 40 degrees of shoulder turn and you turn your hips 40 more degrees, guess what happens to your shoulder turn? It gets to 80, because you're still keeping that same separation. So you just have to focus on your lower body turning to help your path. Path is from body turn, not club face. So hopefully that helps you, Jonathan. All right. Last but not least, okay, Marco, we got your video down here. Let's see. Let me remove these things for a second. I'm going to remove this, and we're going to remove the comment. Okay. We're going to move. Oh, there's another one. Let's remove this one. You see your videos down here, right? Let's just hope. See? You can't see it on your screen, but something went wrong in swing center. Swing catalyst needs to exit. So I hit close, and it shuts down. So you'll probably see it disappear pretty soon. So for some reason, I see it on here. There it goes. I see it on here, but I don't see it on swing catalyst. So if you could just resend those to me, and we'll get them next week. Sorry about that, but I'm glad we got everybody. Let's see here. Looks like the right arm is over her left address. Yes, the arm should be. Yes. Yep. And that's where that, Stephen, that's where that alignment rod, just shove it in between the forearms and pull it back. That'll help her out. I will compress the file. No worries. Could be the camera. Not necessarily. Stephen takes really good angles. That was actually a perfect angle because it's down the foot line. So I would say yes, it would be if it was down the ball line or maybe even further right. But you could definitely see right forearm was over while her whole body, lower body, was aiming down the target line. So just try that little alignment rod. But other than that, sorry about that, Marco. We'll get you next week. But I hope that helps you. We'll see you guys in a week. If you need to send me videos, info@langoffacademy.com. Make sure face on down the line, and then just send me notes, whatever you need to have work on, and also what your current state is. Do you block it? Do you top it? Do you hit it in the pools of Mrs. Havocamp? But other than that, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for the support. I'm going to get some videos out for you. My week's slowing down, so you should see more up there. Other than that, I'll see you guys. Berries and green.